Blabberbrains.
I know a lot of people in the paranormal field, or they're investigators, or they're mediums, psychics, and they're Christians.
Mhm.
And throughout their life and time of doing this stuff, you would think that they would have encountered something that would if there wasn't something to it, that they would say, you know what, I've just seen enough that there's nothing there, and so I'm completely wrong. But they remain in their faith. So, I mean, how do you respond to that? Because I know you're a Christian, and I know you like a lot of your lectures, you kind of build that stuff in there. But how do you work the two between the paranormal investigations and your faith?
Sure, and that's probably one of the most common things that comes up for me. I do want to just comment on your message about time. I completely agree. Like, time is a man-made construct in the way that we understand it. I have a whole lecture called How Soon Is Now, where we talk about time and space-time and how time is different just within levels of elevation within our own world. My buddy Mike Ricksecker, who's on a lot of different programs, he's on Ancient Aliens sometimes. He's got some amazing documentaries that he's put together, little segments about this. And I went down this rabbit hole researching time and trying to understand it, and like started to drive myself crazy. And now I've realized like how much, I mean, yeah, I'm always busy, but I feel like there's so much time that I've wasted previously that I have to catch up now. But there's no catching up because it's a construct that we've made, yet we can't conquer, which is interesting.
Right.
But as a Christian, yeah. So for me, and I have a great respect for all the major world religions. However, people want to worship God, goddess. I believe that the main company I like to refer to as like Hallmark had different divisions with different prophets in different lands. In a time where we did not know other countries even existed, you would take a message from someone that looked like you, somebody that spoke like you, and somebody that you could understand. So it made sense for these different lands to have different prophets and different stories. But when we put them all together, there's so many commonalities between like the flood story narrative and just the overwhelming message always of love and respect. Like, that's what it comes down to. So worship the way you want to worship, just be respectful of others. For me as a Christian, a couple of stories I always point to when people bring up the paranormal. And first off, I'm not sitting there conjuring up the dead. I'm not dealing with unclean spirits and trying to exorcise people or dealing with demons. I've been doing this 31 years, and I have a 0 demon track record. So either I'm really bad at it, or they're not as common as some people think. I do believe in angels and demons. I do believe that there is a hierarchy, however you want to call it. Maybe the nomenclature is different. But for me, I keep myself in a real positive place. I don't come across the negative as much. Even in this world, it helps to stay positive and clean. It kind of keeps the negativity away. But I always point out for my Christian brethren a couple of things. One, you have to be honest about the Bible, inspired by God, but written by man. And books that were put in the Bible at one time were really well regarded. And then all of a sudden, when Rome got involved and decided this is going to be the main religion, we're going to pick through which books we like and which books that we don't have any use for. So like a lot of the Dead Sea Scrolls I got shoved to the side were most likely written by the Essenes, who were the group that were said to be closest to Christ. And in there, they mentioned, I went to an exhibit they had in Boston, and I sat in on a lecture and everything, and it was mentioned in there that they believe heaven is just a shift away. It's not as far as we would think. And then when I started looking at that with that type of context and reading in the Bible, and we see there's the old story about Saul and the Witch of Endor, and they do some conjuring in that one. When Christ is dealing with the unclean spirit, he casts out the spirit, and he says that we can do this in his name. Now, again, I don't do that type of work. The one case I did where it seemed kind of a darker nature, again, I wouldn't jump to demon. I went and had a friend of mine who was a priest that was in Rhode Island at the time, introduced the two people, went my own way. Like that was what I needed.
You're more equipped for that, yeah.
Yeah, like it's like this isn't my area of specialty, so let me
Right.
help you out. But when Christ is appearing, walking on water, like he mentions that he's not a ghost. When he first appears after the resurrection, and Didymus, the twin, doubting Thomas, wants to put his hand in his side to see, like, is this really him? And he mentions that he is not a ghost. So there's showing difference between resurrection versus spirit activity. And I mean, how many times are there spirits in the stories? There's so many, so and so appeared to this one and gave them these messages. Angels appeared and gave them these messages. So there's so much evidence for it just within the books themselves. And then this isn't a story I used to share a lot, but I'm starting to share it more and more. I did a college lecture. I do colleges usually in the fall. And I did a college lecture in New England. And I went, and after the lecture, we usually do like a small investigation event. And it was just for this group, I think it was like 10 or 12 people, and it was their drama club that had sponsored the thing. So I went to this small little house off the side of the campus with these kids. And I was using one of the box devices and getting absolutely nothing, like just nothing coming through. And one kid was really kind of snarky and kind of like judgy and kind of hateful through the whole thing. And you just kind of feel that like bad energy, that juju, I'm just like, whatever, man. But as spirit often does, they will choose this person to kind of show themselves to or to make a comment to.
Right.
And so I told everybody, listen, like they're not responding to me. Like, let's go around and everybody ask a question. And when it gets to this kid, he like really condescendingly was like, so like, are there jobs in heaven? Like, what do you do? And I swear to you, this is as true gets. This girl's voice came through clear as day and said, hang out with Jesus Christ. And everybody looked at me like gasped. I'm like, I've never heard that name. I've never heard the name of Jesus come through in any session I've ever done. So I'm like, oh my God, like what is going on right now? And
That's
so like
awesome.
this girl was sitting next to the kid that asked the question, and she's like, what did she say? I'm like, and so I asked, I'm like, I'm sorry, could you repeat? And this girl comes back, she goes, hang out with Jesus Christ, God's son, gotta go. And then that was it. Nothing else happened. I was like,
that's awesome.
What just happened? I remember walking out of there and calling Chip coffee. I'm like, Chip, you're not going to believe what just happened. Like, this is the craziest freaking thing. Right. And it's still one of the most like amazing moments that I had. And I'm not the best investigator. I don't record a lot of my sessions, hardly any, because I'm in it for the moment. I'm in it for the experience. Like, I ain't got time to sit around and record a bunch of things. I just like to live in the moment. And but that was when I was like, damn, I wish I recorded that because it was amazing.
That was a moment, that's for sure.